Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Bickle. Welcome to INN News. Still no vote on the debt plan in Washington, but there's plenty of finger pointing still going on as we get closer to that default deadline. A House vote on Speaker John Boehner's plan failed to happen yesterday. The delay reveals a rift within the GOP.
I can't support this plan. I would love to be able to support Speaker Boehner, Leader Cantor.
We want to make sure we never get here again. I want to support something that makes sure we never get here again.
If debt is the problem, raising the debt limit by $2.4 billion, I don't see how it can be a solution.
Boehner is retooling his plan, and House Republicans have resumed talks today. Also today, the Senate says it's going to go forward with its own plan.
The last train is leaving the station, and this is our last chance to avert a default.
And once again, the president says enough is enough, and he says this is not a crisis.
There are a lot of crises in the world that we can't always predict or avoid. Hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, terrorist attacks. This isn't one of those crises. The power to solve this is in our hands.
Leaders have until Tuesday to make a decision on the debt ceiling or risk a partial government shutdown. The stakes are high if the nation's borrowing limit isn't raised by next Tuesday. The federal government will take in $172 billion in revenue in August, but owes more than $306 billion. That's a $134 billion shortfall. Some of the government's biggest bills are for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid payments, and defense contractors. The White House is not yet revealing who would not get paid. Well, some wicked weather is getting ready to engulf one state in the Gulf, but actually it's going to be a relief. Tropical Storm Don is picking up steam today as it heads toward Texas. It's expected to make land in the next few hours. Many Texans are actually welcoming Don's expected rainfall. Some parts of the state are more than a foot below average for rain. Meteorologist Pat Walker has more on how much rain they may get.
Mike, there have been a lot of locations across the country in deep drought, and Texas, West Texas, South Texas is definitely one of those places. Many locations only receiving 25% of their annual rainfall so far this year, so they are really bone dry, and you would hope Don would bring much needed rainfall. Locations of coastal Texas already seeing the rainfall with Don just off the shore, moving onshore. Don's going to stay as a tropical storm, but that's good news, not hurricane force winds. Some winds around 50 miles per hour, kind of going down to around 45 or so as after it makes landfall. But it will be making its track right through deep South Texas between Corpus and Brownsville and then into northern Mexico. And as it does that, of course, it will be bringing on that tropical moisture. However, it really doesn't look like a whole lot's going to come from this. Mexico and maybe some parts of deep South Texas, just around Brownsville, getting 1 inch to 2 inches. That's what the color of yellow and oranges mean there. Locations, though, back into West Texas look like, for the most part, are going to pick up less than 1 inch of rainfall. But again, from San Antonio to San Angelo, less than 1 inch of rainfall. Around 1 inch would still be about 25% of rain, of the amount of rain that they've already seen this year. So they'll take what they can get.
Thanks, Pat. Overseas now, where a memorial service was held in Oslo today to honor the 76 people killed in last week's bombing and shooting rampage. The service was organized by the youth movement of the Norwegian Labour Party. 68 people were gunned down at the group's summer camp outside Oslo. The suspect in the attacks faced a second round of questions by police today. Here's what else is happening around the world. Time for global news now. Pilot error is being blamed for the plane crash that killed the president of Poland and nearly 100 others last year. Unclear instructions from Russian air traffic controllers and bad weather played a part in that deadly crash. Investigators also say the plane's flight crew wasn't properly trained to handle that situation. The Polish president, his wife, and several top Polish officials died in the April 2010 crash. There's more dramatic video of deadly flooding in South Korea. The heaviest rains in a century have been drenching parts of the country, triggering severe floods and landslides that washed away entire villages. At least 51 deaths have been reported. Rain has been falling at a rate of 2 inches an hour in some areas. Prince Harry will see himself in a different avatar next month. The wild child of the British royal family will join the graphic novel series dedicated to his brother William and his wife Catherine Middleton. The royals, Prince William and Kate Middleton, was released in April to coincide with their wedding. And now the royals, Prince Harry, will detail the life of the younger prince. The comic will cost $3.99, but a collector's graphic novel will be available online for $7.99. And that's your Global News Now. Well, fewer foreclosure filings. What's really behind them? And looking for a new quiet place to live? Brian Latham tells us what town is for sale in tonight's Back to Business.
Foreclosures are on the decline in major U.S. cities. The latest report from RealtyTrack says 84% of U.S. metro areas saw a decrease in the number of foreclosures for the first half of the year. Fortunately, that doesn't mean the housing market is on the mend. The report says the decline suggests there's a clog in the default loan processing pipeline, where banks are having a hard time selling already foreclosed properties. The IRS is asking airlines to refund taxes to people who bought tickets before last weekend but are now just taking their trips. Those travelers might be owed a refund because Congress let the taxes expire. Instead of passing the savings on to customers when the taxes expired, many airlines simply raised prices to replace the taxes. If you've ever wanted your very own ghost town, now's your chance. A woman is selling 42 acres in South Dakota, which includes the tiny 12-acre town of Scenic. For just about $800,000, the town, along with its saloon, post office, and 2 stores, can be yours.
They say it was once a rough and tumble cowboy town, but now there's only 9 residents left in Scenic. For Back to Business, I'm Brian Latham.
Well, do you have one of these? Did you know the iPod is so yesterday? With all the buzz about the iPhone and the iPad, sales for the iPod are dropping like a rock. Apple sold just 7.5 million iPods in the most recent quarter. That is the lowest number since the fall of 2005. Apple still holds a 70% share of the MP3 player market, and the iPod brought in more than $1 billion in sales in the past 3 months. Well, it's not exactly the beginning to wedded bliss a Denver couple was hoping for. Newlyweds Chris and Emily McGrin were married this past weekend in Michigan in a big family ceremony. On their way back to Denver, the couple stopped in Council Bluffs, Iowa to stay the night at a hotel. They woke up to their car gone with all their wedding presents inside. Well, they say it's just stuff they lost. Some items, like a grandmother's china and silverware, are family heirlooms that are irreplaceable.
I cried and had a panic attack, and then now I'm just in shock that somebody could do that to us. And I mean, I know it wasn't directed towards us, but just someone could do that in general to someone and take their car and all their belongings. It's shocking to me that everything is gone.
Council Bluffs police are handling the case. They say they've seen a string of similar car thefts in the past few weeks. Next, tourists visiting the U.S. are taking more than souvenirs back home with them. What else they're packing has put America on the holiday fat map. And it's been a hot one, and there's still plenty of summer left. If your child still hasn't learned to swim, it's not too late. How to get them started.
Temperatures are high and so are power bills. I'm Erica Rodriguez. Coming up, I'll show you how to cut back on energy during these hot summer months.